This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, right out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And this is episode 405, my 405th interview here on March 12th, 2021. And you know what? 2021 has brought the blessing of Zoom, which has been very helpful to many during the pandemic. And I've been able to interview a lot of wonderful guests on here. And I got an interesting character on here today who's worked with the Trailer Park Boys, David Cronenberg, and various movies. He's also a voice actor, and he's got a lot of words of wisdom for us. Folks, I give you the wonderfully talented Howard Jerome. How do you do, Howard?
Yay! Yay on me. I'm still alive. I'm vertical. I'm on this side of the grass. Yay!
39 years old, huh?
Yeah, I just made it to my 39th birthday. times two, actually, times two plus. Yeah, I just did 81 years, and that's remarkable for me. I never thought I'd live to be 81, nor did I ever think that 81 could feel good. I was wrong both times. It's nice to be wrong about some things.
You know, I read in the Bible, it says you have 70 years on this earth, 80 if you're strong. I guess you're strong.
Well, I think the deal is with the big guy, it's 120 good years. And if you want to renegotiate, you'll have to talk to my agent at that time. But I think biologically, we're 100 is doable. I'm looking forward to 100. And I'm trying to match my weight to my age. So when I'm 180, I'll weigh 180, which is what I weigh right now. So that is cool.
Well, George Burns got to 100, so there you go.
Beautiful, beautiful. I've already outlived my genealogy, so to speak. My family doesn't live long, but I made good choices a long time ago, some which be surprising. Like I have no alcohol, I drink no alcohol, and I smoke no tobacco, and I eat no meat, with the exception of those wonderful cod tongues that you guys do out east. I went out to Newfoundland some years ago, got introduced to cod tongue culture and the Kaylee, and had a wonderful time out there. So I'm digressing and jumping all over the place. I'm going to ask you to ask me some questions.
Well, first off, I'm here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Have you been out this way before?
I've been to Newfoundland. I haven't had the pleasure of being out where you guys are.
Okay. Most people don't know where we are. I had a guest that I scheduled yesterday who I've had on twice before, didn't realize I was an hour ahead of her. I was like, there is that little cubby hole in Canada called New Brunswick that nobody seems to know about. There's like a show waiting to happen right there.
Hey, where's the Python name from?
You know what? I love African wildlife. Anytime, like if I'm browsing something on YouTube, I'll watch African wildlife, and I've always liked snakes. I don't own any. I own a cat who disappeared because I think he knows I'm on here and he knows I'll grab him.
I had the same experience just now. My cat just fled the room. My cat.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was up here and just left.
Yeah. But I do love snakes, especially the python, the big constrictors,
Wow.
and I like the spotted hyena as well. So I go by the python hyena. But here's the thing, and I've explained this many times, but they're two animals that are very misunderstood because they do a lot for the environment and they're not given enough credit for it. I was surprised to discover that snakes eat more rodents and pests than birds of prey and cats. Did not know that, but apparently they do. And the spotted hyena, they say, has a stomach like cast iron. They say that they'd be right at home in a sewer because they just devour stuff that we throw away, and apparently they eat the bone because they like the marrow. So they get the strongest jaw pressure of
Wow.
any mammal. So they're two animals that are often looked down on. Of course, growing up, of course, I'm 49 now, but I remember being bullied in school. So I know what it was like being looked down on. So, and I've heard your story growing up that you also experienced a lot of that as well. So, it's kind of nice to be where we are now, where we're smiling and we're happy and we're in our happy place, you know?
Well, one of the things that living a long time does is it gives me, you, an opportunity to look back and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that again,"
Mm-hmm.
or "My God, I did that again." So you gain a little bit of wisdom and some vision over the decades. Plus, a major part of my off-screen life has been the study of very strange and wondrous esoteric things with amazing people for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at the same time, I've had this wild career. When I saw the name Python, I thought, well, that's a wrestling term, right? I got these pythons going up there and they pose and then they show their muscles off and they call them the pythons.
It's interesting you say that because the person I got booked for tomorrow is Rowdy Roddy Piper's daughter.
Wonderful, wonderful. I wrestled professionally myself for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Did they tell you that at all? No, you didn't
I
see
did
that?
not know that. Did you? Did you wrestle anybody I might know?
Absolutely. Well, first thing you have to know is I'm from New York, right? So I
Okay.
wrestled in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And I wrestled for about 2.5, 3 years, something like that. 61, 62, 63, way back then. I weighed 250, 60 pounds then. I played 5 years of semi-professional football, tried out with the Jets. I was a Jewish jock out of
Uh-huh.
Brooklyn. And I wrestled professionally. I had my name, professional name was Eric von Hess. I was a phony German. Eins, zwei, drei, Dummkopf. I take you, I break you, I throw you, verdrink. And I carry on like that and shout and scream and jump up and down. However, my training partner, and I was his sparring partner, was the great Bruno Sammartino.
I
You know,
love Bruno.
we were contemporaries. We had the same management, and that was the man named George Tragadius. They named him George Tragus when he moved from Greece, and he was the trainer of Bruno, and Bruno was the big guy at the Holland gym. I was the second big guy. As you know, Bruno made it as big as you could possibly make it.
Actually, I've got a Bruno figure. You just hold on here.
Just so happened, huh? Just so happened.
Actually, I got a couple Bruno figures, but these ones are right handy. I think Bruno is the greatest champion in wrestling.
Well, he was amazing, a very powerful, the strong boy from Abruzzo, Italy, they said.
Yeah.
But the real amazing story was the trainer, who is George Tregas, who was a 2 or 3-time, I forget now, world Olympic Greco-Roman champion from Greece, actually, Tragadius. And when he came to America, and he decided he'd like to wrestle here, they made him into a villain, and they said, okay, you'll lose this match, so-and-so. And he said, no, Tregas no lose match, never lose match. And they said, no, here in America, it's a different story. We tell you when you win.
Bruno. I got, this is the old, the rubber ones, you know. I got one that you can move, but these ones here, these are so good.
If you track the management back, we both wrestled for Arnold Golden Boy Skoland out of
Oh,
Capital.
I know who he is, yeah.
You really? Shit, I would
I
love it.
go, I can't watch wrestling now because I don't like what Vince McMahon has done with it. But back in the 60s, like when you mentioned you wrestled in the 60s, this is the first person I thought of was Bruno.
Well, we were contemporaries, obviously, and Skull Murphy and Brute Bernard and Killer Kowalski and
Oh,
those guys.
love him. Killer Kowalski, yes.
I even invented a hold called the Prussian Hangman. It was a ridiculous move, but that was my hold. I had a partner named Gino Garibaldi. We wrestled as a tag team. We called ourselves the Axis Powers. It was post World War II.
Yeah.
So we and the danger then, as now, was outside the ring because the audience is where you can get hurt.
Yeah.
During my days, we didn't have enough security, enough barricades, so they would throw hot coffee at you or cigarettes or try to cut you with something or other. And on more than one occasion, as the villain, I had to fight my way out of the arena.
I've heard stories like that from, well, speaking of, I got a bunch of these. You know, Rowdy Roddy Piper and Terry Funk were a couple of people that they've been stabbed a few times, and yeah, but I have tremendous respect for them. You know.
Well, I'm in a few documentaries. I never made it big. I was a club wrestler. I never made it to the big time, but I had a good time. And as a villain, it gave me a great deal of presence, which I could bring to stage or screen, which I'm comfortable doing.
So what was it like being in the ring with the great living legend Bruno Sammartino?
I was a sparring partner. Remember, he's weighing 280 pounds. I'm 260. So he's the big guy, second big guy. We're sparring partners. Now, getting back to George Tragus, who was our teacher, this guy was like wrestling a tree. Immobile, and he felt like a tree. His skin was like bark, and he had the wrestler's ears. If you're a follower of mixed martial arts now, you know who the wrestlers are by their ears. And so,
oh yeah, Bruno had these what they call cauliflower ears.
That's
yeah,
it. You know, they're serious. You know, they get that stuff. So George Tragus was so powerful, you could not move him, and you could not bend him. And so he trained Bruno and myself. We had that the Holland Hotel had this great gym, and that's where we all trained in New York City during those days. I played 5 years of, as I say, semi-pro football. Did I tell you that story on the Wisdom Keepers? Was that there?
Yeah, yeah. It was mentioned, you know, and I just kind of watched that. I found it very, very uplifting. You were sitting on the park bench and you were playing your instrument there, and very uplifting.
So I have had a strange and wondrous life, and in terms of my career on screen, also wondrous and strange because I never made it big. You know, I'm a little guy, which is great. That means the big guys, they can't act forever because they can't take small roles. I can take the small roles. And so I will do that until they carry me away. And maybe that'll be my last part. So I'm grateful for that. I've also, being a character actor, I got to be everything. I got to be a hillbilly, and I've been as many rabbis as I've been mafia guys. So I've had this wondrous career on screen, cartoon voices right from the get-go. I love doing voices. And I've had a great career. And the most important thing I've done in Canada lives on my shirt. Once I moved here from New York during Vietnam in 1971, there was a thing that happened called Kent State.
Okay.
In America, it was at war. There were campus upheavals, and at a university called Kent State, the National Guard was sent in, and they killed a bunch of students on campus. And at that point in time, I figured
Yeah.
The United States is hopeless. This war, now this country is hopeless. I'm getting out. So I did. I left as soon as I could. Thereafter, I got up here at the fall of 72 and stayed in 73, I think, from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I was studying in New York, I brought with me, and it turned to this. And this is my legacy. If I, God forbid, die on your show, then you'll have the legacy. This is it. This is what my gift to my beloved country, Canada. Do you see those words?
Canadian improv games. Yes. That is awesome.
So I am the developer and creator of the Canadian improv games, now in its 43rd year, with some 500 participating high schools nationwide from where you are to Salt Spring Island in BC. We have hundreds and hundreds of volunteers year after year after year. The winning teams from each province go to Ottawa for the National Improv Championships. Without COVID, it would have been soon.
Yeah.
And each year I would go to Ottawa and deliver the speech from the improv throne as Old Man Improv. And I would give the winning team from the 500 participating, whittled down to 20, and a week-long festival of improvisation of the world's biggest improv festival in Ottawa that takes place every year. And it's been my blessing. My kids are everywhere, graduates of the games. You might be one for all I know. 43 years later. Anyway, when the team from Halifax first came, they came wearing kilts. It was wondrous.
Like Roddy Piper.
A high school team wearing kilts from Halifax. Yeah, it was great. Like Roddy. Yeah.
Go back to wrestling for a minute.
Improv has been, okay.
I was just going to say, going back to wrestling, did you ever meet Andre the Giant?
No. There were second tiers there. Like now you have the major leagues, and then you have the minor leagues, and you have the class A, whatever that is. So on the level down, we had make-believe guys. For example, I wrestled the guy, you remember Haystacks Calhoun?
Yeah, I do.
Remember that name? Haystacks Calhoun?
Big guy.
And Farmer Don Marlin. Well, we had our version of that. We had Haystacks Jr.
Yeah.
And I wrestled with him. And so there was Swede Hansen. I pretended to be Baby Hansen.
Oh, yeah, I know who he is, yeah.
Yeah, so I was the next level down. So no, I didn't make the big time, didn't make the big cash. The couple of films I've been in all indicate that most of the guys that stayed in the business for decades have the same story to tell. You cannot be on the road 350 days a year and sustain anything at home. So most of the marriages are kaput. Most of the guys are strung out on this, that, or the other, because 350 days plus injuries, you know. So I remember one of the hot guys, I can't remember. I'm sorry to not remember which one it was, but he said the thing he was most proud of in his career was nobody ever missed a day's work because of something he did wrong. And so you're wrestling 300 days a year. Who could sustain such a thing in life, decade after decade? So I guess I was lucky to get out when I did, but I almost made it. And they have, back then, they had fiefdom. So the Northeast was Arnold Scolin's place, but the Southeast was a guy named Fuller. And he wanted me to be his wrestler down there, the villain. Almost made that. Same thing in Puerto Rico. They were going to send me to Puerto Rico to be the villain down there. And I almost made it. It's like auditioning, you know. So I did not make it at that time. And I spent most of my life as a heavyweight until the last 3 or 4 years when I decided, wait a minute, nobody who ever lived to be 100 ever weighed 200. So I did the math and I said, I don't want to do that anymore. I'd like to be old. So I started losing weight. I'm at the best weight I could possibly imagine right now. I should have been this weight all my life. At 180, I feel great. I'm 80 years old plus. I'm 180. I work out daily. I bought one of those things you hang from upside down. You know those things called
Yeah.
Well, I'm taller than I was. I'm taller, thinner, and younger than I've been. So that's my mantra: taller, thinner, younger. And I'm in robust health and physical energy at this stage in my life.
Well, you know what? Both Bruno Sammartino and Killer Kowalski both lived to old ages. So both were over 80 when they passed. So you're in great company.
Well, I love those guys.
Yeah.
Bruno and I were close. Although he was the big guy, I was the next heaviest guy in the gym. So he needed me to throw around.
Well, I have great respect for Bruno. I'm trying to get somebody from his family. I'm in the negotiating to get somebody from his family to come on and tribute to him. So,
what a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I have just tremendous respect.
You've seen the documentary on him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. And right. Yeah. So good for him.
Absolutely.
My football career was equally interesting because it took place during the civil rights movement in the United States, and I was the only white player on my team. Makes me the outstanding player, I guess you could say. But as a white player on a black man's team, each year we would play a benefit game for a different black organization. And so this was my 5 years in semi-pro football in Brooklyn before I tried out with the Jets. This was my 5-year career. First year, I put my fist on the ground, on the turf for the NAACP. You know what that is? That was in America, there were different black organizations, and the NAACP was the college fund people. The next time I put my fist on the ground was for CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, the next year. The next year, the benefit game was played for SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. This was college radical kids. The next year, I put my fist on the ground for the Black Panthers. And the next year, the Muslims were in charge, and they would not let me put my fist on the ground because I was a white man. They said all white men are born evil, including me. And that's when I learned the lesson that stood for my lifetime, man, which is when the love of your own people, whatever it is, Black, Jewish, New Brunswicker, when your love of your own people becomes the hate of the other, all is lost. So while I was proud to put my fist on the ground for my Black brothers for 4 out of those 5 years, when the hate came along through the Muslim organization, I had no more time or patience for it then, and nor did I have it when I was living in Brooklyn when the Jewish thing came down. There was a same story in Brooklyn. There was a young Jewish rabbi who was defending Jewish Orthodox people against assaults from the Black and Puerto Rican community. And he said, not here, not now. I'm gonna get a baseball bat, I'm gonna get some friends, we're gonna patrol the neighborhood, and we're gonna take care of ourselves. When the love of your own, he moves to Israel, and the love of your own people became the hate of the other. Doomed. And so, of course, he's assassinated because hate breeds that. So the things that I've been involved with politically and socially always come down to the same thing. We are one people on one planet in one universe. Now, what the hell are we going to do? You can't be my enemy. There are too many of you to be my enemy. We are family, whether we like it or not. Some of us are nuts and need to be hospitalized for their own good.
Yeah.
But there's no way out of it, man. A bunch of us screaming fleas on this planet, spinning through the universe, pretending we are separate from each other. And that separation is the killer. The belief that I am separate from you, I am separate from my environment, My hockey team is separate from your hockey team. My nation is separate from your nation. In fact, the theologies of today are built on separation. We separate the atom. Look what happens when you separate an atom. Wow. Separation is the theology of the day. The ultimate separation is you from yourself, which is the outburst of mental illness in the 21st century. That's insane what's going on in the world of mental illness. It's insane.
Yes.
An explosion of pain in my own home, in your own home, probably, in everybody's home somewhere. Someone is hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to bring up Swearnet, the movie, because I remember when I saw this in the theater. I had somebody with me, and he saw it, and he said, this was his second time, and he said, I'm going to go see this with you because you're going to hate it, because he hated it. He kept looking at me through the whole screening. It's like, why are you laughing? And I said, because it's funny. Apparently, I didn't know this. Apparently, the movie was rated NC-17 when it came out.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Guys are wild on stage and off stage too. There's stuff I can say and there's stuff I can't, but I can. I'll reminisce. I will reminisce with a song. There was an old song called "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles." Well, bubbles. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
I know what you're talking about, Mike Smith. But bubbles. You know, they say they did a lot of talk about the Wolf of Wall Street having so much profanity, and you rarely ever hear the truth because apparently Swearnet the movie is in the Guinness Book of Records of having more F-bombs than any other movie. 935 F-bombs.
Oh, we got to do the sequel. We got to make 1,000. We got to do 1,000.
I'm going to tell you, I love the Trailer Park Boys. I've been wanting to get them on here. I haven't had much luck, but I'm going to tell you, I enjoyed Swearnet the movie. I just thought it was hysterical, you know.
Well, I got the owner or the guy that ran the racetrack. I had no beard then. I wore that cowboy hat and I had one eye, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and the guys are stoned on acid and they wind up hearing the wrong name and spitting egg on my face, and they're hysterical and. They want to race and I won't let them race because they're stoned on acid. So we have this wonderful little battle, and the cars, by the way, were wonderful. The real deal, beautiful race cars. So I got to see cars I would normally never get to see with these guys. They did a CGI, which is a computer graphic on my eye. So they kind of painted it out and put in the other eye, which is where I get the famous name in the movie, which was?
Trigger.
Trigger. And Trigger, they see, when they're stoned on acid, the joke was, be careful not to be triggered by anything. That's the joke. Don't get triggered by anything. So the first thing they do is they meet a guy named Trigger. So of course it explodes on them. And so they're stoned on acid and they want to drive in the race car. And we have this wonderful thing there with them. And Carrot Top was in the middle of this madness too.
Yep, Carrot Top and Tom Green.
Just a wondrous, you know, when I first arrived in Canada in 73, 4, I was lucky enough to land in with the creme de la creme of Canadian comedy at that time, which was Don Harron and Billy Van and Barb Hamilton and Jack Duffy. And they were doing a show out of Ottawa called Shh, It's the News. Shit's the News. Like Schitt's Creek. Shit's the News. And it was a wonderful way for me to meet the comedic genius of Canada at that time. So we did a couple of seasons of that show out of Ottawa. And at the same time, I introduced the Canadian Improv games. At the same time, I developed a group called the Portable Theater, which is a whole discussion in and of itself. At the same time, I was involved with developing what is turned into Winterlude. You've been to Winterlude in Ottawa on the canal? We started that. Mm-hmm. We did. Me and another war resistor, this guy from Boston, Rick Minichello. I'm from Brooklyn. He's from Boston. We meet in Ottawa, so certainly something's going to happen. And what happened was we challenged the artists of Ottawa to get out of their studios and create with the medium of winter. And so we did theater, music, dance, poetry. I built a rainbow-colored igloo on the ice in Ottawa, and we did that for 2 years. Rick somehow managed to get the army to fly in the Christmas trees from Parliament Hill after they were used. We took them, and we built them like a teepee and ran hoses up in them and made this gigantic ice sculpture that we called the Espace de Glace, the place of ice. Beautiful, beautiful experience that ultimately inspired what we now know as Winterlude. So they're at the beginning of that. So I bring this whole thing, again, I'm from Brooklyn. That's never going to change. Mm-hmm. And I wind up living in Ottawa for 4 or 5 years and in Toronto for 30 years. Now I'm in Hamilton for 5 years, 6 years now. And I went back to New York last year. And I like Toronto a lot. I lived in.
I do too. For 30 years. Yeah.
I liked it a lot. However, I love New York. Even though I've missed it for 20 years, I hadn't been back in 20-something years. The minute I stepped foot in Manhattan, man, it's just different. So there's a difference between those who broke your cherry and those who you may have married. New York is who I am, what I'm made of. It's in my blood. And yet I love living in Canada. This country has embraced me, accepted me, given me a life and a career, an opportunity to serve. And so I'm grateful for what I have done here in Canada. Yeah, I'm grateful.
Absolutely. We all are. So when you did Swearnet, what was it? First off, we not too long ago we lost John Dunsworth, of course, played Mr. Leahy. He was such a talent. You have any memories of him?
I'm afraid I don't. But what I can say is, as an 80-year-old actor, the guys that preceded me are gone. So by fiat or atrophy, I'm the next rung on the ladder. Let me give you a perfect example of that. The great Al Waxman. You remember that name?
I do. He was in one of my favorite Canadian films, Class of 1984.
A wonderful, wonderful actor, wonderful, wonderful man. A gita neshama, as we say, a good soul. And when he passed away, he was in rehearsal for Stratford. And when he passed away, another wonderful actor, Paul Soles. You know Paul? That name?
Don't know that name.
You do now. You do now. So he steps into Al's role, and it's appropriate that he do so. Meanwhile, Paul vacated the show that I stepped into.
Okay.
And that's appropriate too. And the one that I stepped into out in Winnipeg, I was perfect for it. Paul was not as perfect for it as I, because this is a show about a New York artist with a whole background. And so we move one, Al goes to heaven, Paul goes to Stratford, I go to Winnipeg. Now, when Paul goes to heaven, I'll go to Stratford, and somebody will come in behind me. And that's the way of things. And it's right. So we lost Christopher Plummer. My goodness.
Yeah, what a great talent. What a great talent. What a career.
I had 1 second on screen with him, 1 second, and I'm grateful for that. So that film he made, I'm trying to remember the title of it, where it's basically a two-hander, where his body is gone, but his mind is good, and his friend, the mind is gone, but the body is good. And so they become one person in seeking revenge, and it's quite a film, remarkable. He had a great career, and boy, I'm glad that my name is somewhere in one of his films. My name is in one of his films. So,
I think I know what film, and we will be coming to that. I
Yeah.
did want to ask, what was it like working with the Trailer Park Boys?
When you say what was it like,
Yeah.
they were inventive off stage. The thing was not completely 100% scripted, mostly scripted, but not 100%. And so they would try stuff off stage, and they said, that was good, let's do that, let's not do that. They would try stuff. And some of the stuff was outrageous. And I am forever blowing bubbles.
Yeah.
So I didn't have enough time, days with them. It was great to do the auto shoot and the excitement of all of that. Cars were wonderful, noisemakers, and great big toys for the boys to play with. And I had a good time. I also, I don't have my prop with me. I meant to bring my prop. Oh, well. I went to a powwow while I was up there. A powwow. I've been doing native stuff for over 40 years. I'm a sweat lodge man. You ever been in a sweat lodge? No. You want to talk about that yet? Or you want to talk about trailer park boys? I got nothing more to say. I got nothing more to say about them.
Oh, let's talk about that then.
As a part of my growth as a human being, I've been lucky enough to find magnificent teachers in a variety of fields. One of them was a brother, my uncle. He allowed me to call him uncle. A Sin Stone Vern Harper of the Cree Nation, a medicine man and a sweat lodge leader. So Sweat Lodge is a spiritual sauna, indigenous style. A wooden igloo is built. A hole is in the ground. Rocks that have been heated are brought into the hole. The wooden igloo is covered with cloth or tarp or whatever it is, and a sauna is created in which prayers are done. This man of the Cree Nation said that, and I loved his attitude, just like I love my rabbi's attitude, for the same exact reason. They said, we've been keeping this kind of secret, this sacred secret sweat lodge. Let's open it up. Let's make it for all the races of man, not just the red man. So he embraced me as a white Jewish man. And he embraced people from Africa to come and sweat together and pray together and suffer together and do this thing called Sweat Lodge, which I had been honored to do for 40 some odd years until his passing 2 years ago. So I have a great reverence for indigenous wisdom, specifically the Sweat Lodge, which I have been privileged to sit in dozens and dozens over the decades, and to understand the true role of tobacco and its role in making prayer, not in doing what we do with it. And so I have been blessed to have experienced that with Vern Harper. I've had other teachers and other teachings. For example, I'm going to show you a chart here. I know this thing doesn't like to be turned, but right here, this is a chart of, I guess you'd call it yoga. Can you see any of that?
Yeah, I can.
These are chakras, mantras, mudras, mandalas. Those are terms from the Hindu tradition. I had, again, the honor of studying yoga master, the Venerable Dr. Mishra Sri Ramamurti Saraswati Brahmananda Guru of Ananda Ashram. I beg your pardon? The Dr. Mishra Sri Ramamurti Saraswati Brahmananda Guru of Ananda Ashram, a teacher of fire, Agni, fire to harden the spiritual resolve, fire to burn off the dross of the ego. the practice of chakra, mantra, mudra, mandala, the practice of chanting, the practice of postures, the practice of breathing. Breathing. You know a little bit about breathing?
Yeah, I got to do it.
Almost every day. Almost
Yeah.
every day. Like we're addicted to the damn thing.
Yeah.
But there are breathings and there are breathings. And so I got to study breathings with the various people. And there are various kinds of breathings. The Hindus call it pranayama. Pranayama, breathing, the force, life force that lives in the air, that goes from outside to inside, that brings life in and then takes the excess away. So I studied with him for years at the Ananda Ashram, and I learned a lot about that. I'm very skillful and knowledgeable in the areas of chakra, mantra, mudra, mandala meditations. I know a lot about that stuff. Studied for a long time, went to the ashram year after year after year after year. And so I studied that for a long time. I like bragging about my teachers. So we got Vern Harper and we got Ramamurthy. We got David Shepard, who taught me improv. Mm-hmm. David Shepard, who taught me improv. We lost him last year. He started basically what we know as Second City. You know, his first students were Mike Nichols and Elaine May and Shelley Berman and Alan Lochner and Stiller and Mira and those folks who went on to create Second City, Saturday Night Live, Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So David Shepard and I meet up in New York City. I'm a radical socialist guy looking for whatever I can find. And he's got this thing called improvisation. And I thought, well, maybe that's something that we could use as an organizing principle for my socialist, the Labor Party friends. So we created a thing called Community Makers, using improvisation as a means to build community in the slums of New York City, using improv to explore life. I performed improv in prisons with murderers, in penthouses with billionaires, and I'm not sure which was which, you know, if you ask me today. But the range of improv, using it for a variety of purposes, and that was David Shepard's great gift to the world and his training of me so that I could bring them to Canada. So I'm like Johnny Appleseed or John the Baptist, whatever it is. And I brought the improv games to Canada, and it has become the most successful improv tournament in the world. There's nothing like it. So that's David Shepard. We got three of my teachers. And Dr. Jean Houston, she of the mystery schools. The what? The mystery schools. What's that? We studied teachings from everywhere at every time. Who knew what when that may be of some use to me now? What did the goddess of the ancient Sumeria, Inanna, have to tell me about my work life? So we would study the wisdoms and cultures of all peoples of all times, immersing ourselves, walking, talking, thinking, dreaming, sleeping, eating, dancing the way they might have done, so that we might awaken this ancient wisdom within ourselves. Year after year, month after month, a week in the month, 9 months of the year after year, mystery school, studying the wisdoms of all peoples of all times. Dr. Jean Houston, an amazing woman. The first time I met her, the New Dimensions of Consciousness conference in New York City in 1970, whatever it was. And they brought together physicists and poets and actors and rocket scientists and doctors and Tai Chi players and this wild collection of wisdom and science and art. And it was fantastic. And then they introduced the keynote speaker to sum it all up, Dr. Jean Houston. And she gets up on stage and suddenly this tsunami of intelligence and wisdom and knowledge and humor pours out. And we are all engulfed in this wild awareness. And I have to tell her how magnificent she was, but so did everybody else. And they all rushed up to her after her speech and said, oh, Jean, oh, Jean, oh, Jean, oh, Jean. And I looked at that crowd and I said, I'm not going to be able to get to that lady. She was at this long, long table, right, where all the speakers were. They were sitting, and the table had a tablecloth over it. And it looked to me, for all the world, like a tunnel. So I got on my hands and knees and I crawled underneath this long, long table where all these feet were of the other speakers. And till I came to her and I found this robe and I tugged on her robe and she came down underneath the table at the New Dimensions of Consciousness conference, demanded to know who I was and what my intentions were. And I told her, you're my teacher and there's nothing either of us can do about that. And then I was invited the next year to live with her and her husband at the Foundation for Mind Research in Pomona, New York, where the cutting edge research had been going on, using everything from visionary vegetables and synthetic sacraments to various forms of meditations and trance inductions, trying to open up the human mind to what we yet may be, because we're scratching at the surface. We got so much brain that's being unused. So through her work, the dozens of books that she's written, she's a world figure and a major force in my life, Dr. Jean Houston. So that's another of my teachers. I get to lay on you. Another one. I want to talk about my rabbi.
Okay.
I left my faith. The first, when growing up in Brooklyn, as I was growing up without a father, by the way, I was an orphan kid. No father, living in poverty, on welfare, and looking at what passes for religion in my neighborhood. And it was like filled with hypocrisy. The same people who were thieves on Sunday were pompous on Saturday. I was not impressed. And as soon as I could become an atheist, I did become one. The older guys in my neighborhood, the guys I looked up to, were being whisked off to some goddamn place called Korea. Korea, the hell was that about? That's a story, I'll tell you. When entitled Nappy Don't Sleep No More, since he come back from the Korea War. Oh, so very soon it seemed to me hypocrisy reigned and I want no part of this thing called religion. The next 20 years I became an atheist, hardcore. I was the singing guy, la 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 la. Oh, there once was a union made like Woody and like Pete Seeger. I was the singing guy for the Socialist Labor Party of New York. For 20 years that went on. Involved with voter registration in the slums of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, involved with organizing on the streets, socialist organizing. So I was that guy for a long period of time. That went on for 20 years. Then I did my first LSD, and then the next 20 years, I was anything but Jewish. I've been a Buddhist, been a nudist, been a yogi, on pogi, I've worked like a dervish, I've done all of those things seriously for long periods of time. And then I get to meet my rabbi. His name was Rabbi Rav Berg, B-E-R-G, of the International Kabbalah Centers. And what I learned here is that the Old Testament, the Bible, you know that thing, the Bible, you know a little about the Bible?
I am Christian, yeah. Although, I'll be frank, I don't go to church anymore for a lot of the reasons you say, but I still read from my Bible. I often tell people, rather than give your 10% to the collection plate, why not find a wonderful charity that could help many people, which is something Jesus instructed people. Give to a charity, And I think people don't realize you don't have to put it in a collection plate. You could give it to a charity, find a good charity, research it, and then give to that. And God will use your givings to help out whatever that need is, whether it's cancer research or you could go on and on for charities, That's what I do. I still read from my Bible. I got it sitting over there, but I left the church itself because of the hypocrisy you talk about, and it is rampant,
My sense is that every organization, some called churches, some called businesses or politics, they're all ultimately have some kind of corruption involved, whether it's for power or for sex or for money, whatever it is, they all ultimately suffer from that. Even the one I follow, but that's baby in bathwater, right?
Yeah.
So the baby is beautiful. The Kabbalah baby is beautiful, and here's why: the Old Testament I'm going to rhyme the Old Testament. Bible's what we call it today, but it's written in code. It's the mother lode. The thing will just blow you away. On level number one, you got the story of the people and the slavery, of the pain and the misery, of the splitting of the old Red Sea. You got Adam and Eve evicted from paradise, Abraham and Isaac, and the sacrifice, the flood, the dove, the dude named Noah, the sinners and the grinners of Sodom and Gomorrah. Everything's there. It's all in the Torah. But it's disguised. You might as well turn the book upside down because that's not where the action is. Each letter has a numerical value. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. Certain things add up to certain things. So you can read the Bible, the old Bible, not the new Bible. The old Bible, the first 4 books of the old Bible, not the 5th book. The 5th book is Moses' dissertation on, let me see if I, God, did I get this right? Then it happened, then that happened. God says, got it right, work on the math. Work on the math, because it is a device disguised as a book of stories. That's the best way I can explain it. A device disguised as a book of stories. Let me give you one example. The names Abraham and Isaac and Jacob from the Old Testament are code names for proton, electron, neutron. Now you have a different story to tell about what is going on when these 3 energies are doing their dance together. If you remove one of those energies, like the neutron, and you just put the proton and the electron together, you get a short circuit in your light bulb. If you remove that 3rd energy, the filament, you get a short circuit. You need those 3 elements for there to be existence at all. Proton, electron, neutron, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. A whole different story to tell. So I'm going to tell you, do you remember a movie called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yes, I do. I saw it in the theater.
Hot dog. And they asked the computer, oh, what's the meaning of life and everything else? And the computer says, go away for 1,000 years. Let me think about it. And then he come back. What's the answer? Do you remember?
I don't. I only saw the movie once, but
okay, that's cool. That's cool because the answer, the computer says, you will not like the answer. It is 42. What? The meaning of life and everything else. The answer is 42. What kind of joke is that? Well, strangely enough, it's not a joke at all, because if you are, and I'm not, an aficionado of math, there is a thing called gematria, the sacred math of the Old Testament, in which certain numbers, now we have the computers, we can check out what these things, what's going on here. There was a book written years ago called The Bible Code, New York Times bestseller list. They used the computer to search for anomalies in how this Bible thing, and lo and behold, certain things came up, like Hiroshima and Timothy McVeigh in the Old Testament. How is that possible? So something's going on there. And it's not about Sodom and Gomorrah. It's not about Samson and Delilah. It's not about that. That's the garment that is worn by the truth of what is going on there. The garment. You can say it's a beautiful garment and spend your whole life looking at the garment, but unless you don't take the garment off, you don't know what's going on inside. And so what's going on inside is magnificent. And the first 42 words of the Old Testament, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, are what we call perfect math. If you do pi, 2 point whatever that 2 thing is, perfect math. No human mind could have written that because it's numerical in value. 5,000 years ago, we didn't have that knowledge. So no human mind could do the math that is in the Old Testament, the first 4 books. No human mind could have done it. Now we can check it out with the computers and find out, oh. And our minds are constantly blown because what is going on there is incredible, leading ultimately, it's a long-winded story to tell you about my rabbi. The first 10 years of 11, 12 years of my relationship to my rabbi were, I almost couldn't look him in the eye. I felt he knew too much about me, about my scam, my song and my dance. And I was kind of ashamed of that. Then he had a stroke and they said, oh, he's going to die, but he didn't die. And they said, well, he'll be a vegetable, but didn't vegetable. And they said, well, he's not going to function, but he did function. But he wasn't who he was. When you took a CAT scan of his brain, dead mass on the brain, but new life was growing, new synaptic connections, new dendritic excitements were going on. He was developing a new personality, teaching us that even this vaunted thing called our brain, even this thing we value so much called our ego and personality, are garments of the soul. And he said the work is the excavation of the soul via the dismantling of the ego. After his stroke, they had to keep me away from him. I wanted to sit on his lap. I mean, that's how I felt about him then. He became a different person. That person I loved. The other person I feared and respected. This one I outright loved. And they had to keep me away from him, actually. They pry me off him, pry me away. Get him away. He's showing too much adoration to a fellow human being. We don't do that in our tradition. You're not supposed to adore like that. But that was my experience with my rabbi, Dr. Philip Berg, and he was an amazing force in my life. And I teach his work to this very day. I'm going to show you one of the teachings. I'm going to walk slowly because I know this thing don't like to be moved. Mm-hmm. But this is a thing I had built for me to represent one of the teachings of something that we call the tree of life. Okay. In the Garden of Eden, there were two things. There was a tree of knowledge and the tree of life. So this is what the tree looks like. That is built out of crystal and copper. Okay. They represent, they're from the very top, which is, can you see my finger point?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where thought happens. This at the bottom is where things happen. Thought to things. This is the process through which things are brought into existence, from thought to manifestation, through the understanding of how this works. It is not only a spiritual principle, but an organizational principle. And it is infallible when followed through. It is a beautiful device. It is a radionic healing device done in that format. So Dr. Philip, Rabbi Berg, was a very important force, brought me back into my tradition, so much so that I actually went to Israel and had an amazing experience in Israel. Oh my goodness gracious. But that's another story. How are we doing with time here, buddy?
We're doing great. We're doing great. It's funny, I just interviewed somebody out of Israel, so somebody from the movie Blow Up.
Oh.
Yeah, I got one of the mimes from that movie. Oh. That was a great catch.
Wow. I read the whole film. Oh.
Yeah.
Anything about the photographers? Is that the movie we're speaking of? That
yep.
Blow Up?
Yep.
Did that not have one of the sexiest things in the world in it? In one of those, as I recall, I don't know. I don't remember, but I do remember fondly remembering Blow Up. Yeah. Wow.
That film's celebrating its 55th anniversary this year, so I went looking to get somebody on to celebrate it, and I ended up finding him. So that was interesting, and I had him on back in February, just last month there, and that was really cool. Yeah, it's always fun to get people from some of these old movies, and I've had a few, so I've been very lucky there.
Yeah.
Actually,
I'm continuing on my celebrating my teachers.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know how many we got so far. I want to talk about my Calgary gal, the Reverend Dr. Barbara Schreiner Trudell, my Calgary gal. Mm-hmm. In Toronto, we have the Bloor Street Cinema. You know about the Bloor Street Cinema?
I don't know.
Oh, we show all the old great films there. We would show those films. We would show Trailer Park Boys. We would show the Cronenberg films there. It's a review of cinema, big one in Toronto, one of the best. And I lived in that neighborhood. So I had a wonderful relationship to that cinema. I would go like everybody else and watch old movies, wonderful. I also occasionally would be in one of those movies, also wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally I would stand on stage for a contest or this, that, or the other thing. But every Sunday, I would go to church in that movie house. And that was presided over by the Reverend Barbara Schreiner Trudell, a rock and roll church in the middle of Toronto, celebrating the work of Dr. Ernest Holmes, the science of mind dude, trying to marry the mind and the heart and faith together in a very beautiful, active way. And I would go there every Sunday, 5-6 years in a row, and sat in church as the Reverend Barbara Schreiner Trudell would tell a story and help us understand a little bit more about our life, and do it with humor and passion and pathos. And we got to sing great songs together in the movie house, the church in the movie house. And then the ceiling literally fell in the movie house. There was a leak in the ceiling. So we lost the church, and then we moved down to Queen Street. I went there for years and years and years as well, because it was worth the journey. There were 5 simple things in the system of teaching that she shared with us. Recognition, realization. I recognize there's only one thing going on. It's called the universe. It's made up of you and me. Just like there's a body here, it's made up of my finger and my beard and my ear. There's one thing going on. It's a universe, and it's made up of you and me and everything else in it. And I realize that within that, I want the best for me, and so does everything else wants the best for me, and they want the best for themselves as well. And I want it for you as well. So I want my highest good in this moment, and I know the universe wants it, because what does it want? My lowest good? Ridiculous. So recognition, realization. The last couple of pieces are, I project in my mind how I want things to be. I give thanksgiving and release. Recognition, realization, thanksgiving, and release. And a simple formula for bringing the kind of thing we want into our life. And did that year after year after year until I moved to Hamilton. And here it's like the desert. For me, I'm such a colorful dude, you know, and I'm here in Hamilton during COVID. And it's a difficult place for this kind of personality to be at this time, because I'm bursting at the seams.
Yes, yes.
To be. I have a whole folk singing career. I've written dozens of songs and plays and books and movies. I'm doing spoken word now, rap material, if you will. That's one of my new art form, spoken word.
There you go. You know, we should talk about the Naked Lunch, because that's celebrating a 30-year anniversary this year. You worked with David Cronenberg.
My relationship to the movie and to Cronenberg is a long and complicated one. Again, where I'm from, which is New York and William F. Burroughs, and that whole beatnik generation conversion from beatnik into hippie. So I'm from that place. So I have, Burroughs was in my life before I met Cronenberg. Then I see Cronenberg's body of work, and it's odd to me because this guy, oh, David, please forgive me, is so sweet. He's so nice. He's such a good man, a good neshama. And his fixation on the dark side is, I don't understand it. I don't know where it's from. I'm grateful that somebody has to do it, but I don't know why it's him, because he's such a gentle soul.
I've heard the same thing about Wes Craven.
Really?
Yes, I've heard the same thing about Wes Craven.
Oh, I hope I didn't blow anything there for you, David. I hope I didn't remove your shadow. Man. So I didn't, I was, first I was a fan of the book, and then the movie came out, and I said, oh my God, it's worse than I thought. It scared the hell out of me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I went through a whole range of, I love it. I don't like this. This is a classic, but it's terrible. But it's this is going to sustain. People are going to want to see this forever for whatever reason. So I've had a complex relationship to the work prior to Cronenberg, because I'm from the Beat generation, basically back then. And it's great. I'm glad that it's become a cult classic. Mm-hmm. Would I see it again? I've seen it a couple of times. It's disturbing, always disturbing. So, I don't know. Ultimately you do a body of work. You do 100 movies or something, and some of them, like the ones we just did in Budapest, The Song of Names. Have you seen that? Have you heard about that? It's a beautiful story about friendship and music set against the Holocaust. A beautiful story. And we shot it in Budapest. And I'm really proud to be a small part of that. That it was clear from beginning to end what that was going to be. Not so clear are a lot of films, like Naked Lunch. I didn't know when I read the script what it was going to turn into. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every movie I've ever been in, even the ones that people say, "Why did you bother?" I like the process. I enjoy playing many different kinds of roles, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I can't wait. I mean it. I can't wait. Please, I can't wait for the next role.
Well, you mentioned Christopher Plummer earlier. It's funny because I know the film you was in with him. It's called Minefield, and I gotta say, there's an actor.
Oh, whoa, that movie too.
Well, there was an actor in that movie that made a big difference in my life. I had Lisa Langlois on my show twice, and in fact, this here is a mood ring. She gave that to me. It fits on this finger best than any, but she gave that to me. She gave it to all of her close friends. She was on my show twice. I'm still in touch with her, but we got talking about travel on the second time she was on my show, and she asked what was stopping me, and then said she was doing a horror film convention in Toronto, and she invited me to assist her at her table. And so not only did I go, which I'm glad I did, I had never flown before or anything like that. I took Porter Airlines, loved it. But she was also my eyes and ears of Toronto, because she showed me how to use the subway and the streetcars, and we went to various restaurants and whatnot. And I got to know her as a friend, and I'm proud to call her that. And she was in Minefield with you and Michael Ironside and Christopher Plummer. She's a wonderful lady.
Yeah, I remember shooting that one. It was a hot tub scene, as I recall. Mm-hmm. And we had to shoot it two ways. One where you could expose the breasts of the women, and one where you had to clothe the breasts of the women, which for the women was okay. But for us in the hot tub, we had to spend the whole day in a hot tub, which means we're going to be puckered and wrinkled from head to toe once you get out of a hot tub. But it was an interesting film, having to do with the LSD experiments that went on. The CIA funded through Montreal, that whole thing. And I wind up living with Gene Houston, who was doing that work. Mm-hmm. That was interesting. Until they made it illegal. Now it's legal again. LSD is coming back as not only a medicine, but a creativity facilitator and some use in mental healing. So you live long enough. You live long enough. Have I celebrated enough teachers with you? Oh no, Richard Pachenko.
Oh yeah.
You know Richard?
No, but keep going.
Have you been with people who are students?
No, I'm just saying, keep going with the teachers if you got more stuff on the teachers.
Richard Pachenko, may he rest in peace. Mm-hmm. No, wherever it is not peaceful. Not with him around. It was my clown master. Richard Pachenko was a visionary shaman, multiple trained in a variety of methodologies, that we loosely call clowning. It's basically his style ultimately evolved into more of a North American style of clowning. By that I mean the Aboriginal way of illuminating situations. And so as part of his teaching of how to become a clown, a sacred clown, is you would make masks of yourself after meditation on the directions, northeast, southwest, above and below. Mm-hmm. So you make these 6 masks, and the 7th would be your final clown. On the very first one of these masks, you do a meditation and an exercise of one kind or another, and then you make the mask out of clay with your eyes closed. Well, that's interesting. So I'm making my mask, I'm digging at the clay, I'm smushing it up with my eyes closed. My eyes are closed, and then I finish my mask, and he says, okay, open your eyes, and I open up my eyes, and staring back at me was all of the ugliness and that I was trying to hide from the world. Everything imaginable that I didn't like about myself was staring right back at me. And it was hideous. And I literally collapsed in seeing it. And Richard, in his genius, came over and covered the sucker up with a piece of newspaper so I wouldn't have to look at it. Mm-hmm. And then he said, after I recovered, he said, go deeper. He said, beyond this ugliness, there is something there that is so heroic that when found will liberate everyone. What? So I did as he asked in the meditations and the exercises, and I went deeper. And sure enough, discovered in there was a magnificent release that was so psychologically healing that everybody in the room, me mostly, but everybody in the room was healed simultaneously by the revelations of the healing of the first mask. So potent is his teaching that it begins with these deep psychological research into yourself and the revelations that come out of that. And once you heal it in yourself, everybody is healed from it. Mine had to do with 2 bricks and a banana and a Nazi. A wonderful story to tell. 2 bricks, a banana, and a Nazi. And at the end of the story, it was worth its weight in gold, worth the tears, worth the pain of seeing the ugliness, worth it all. The release from it as the Nazi and the 2 bricks and this banana came together in a scorching episode. It was magnificent use of the healing art of clowning. So I honor his memory. He turned out dozens, hundreds of thousands. His teachers now are churning out these kinds of teachings. His most famous clowns, they may have even come your way, were Mump and Smoot, who were bizarre clowns, very famous ones. Like Bruno, they were the famous ones in this particular stable. And his teachings were ultimately healing. The clown's job is to release the pain of the audience, through being willing to take it on yourself or laughing at it yourself. So I was grateful for his teachings. I studied with him for a long time. My wife studied even much longer than I. She studied with him much deeper than I did. My wife went on most of these journeys with me through the teachings that we've experienced together. Mm-hmm. And I guess the final teacher of the day, because I'm getting tired here, would be the teaching of the great Ken Keyes Jr., not to be confused with the acid Kool-Aid guy. This little man, before I met him, I was really impressed. He wrote a bunch of books. The first one I read was called The Handbook to Higher Consciousness. I said, oh, and it's like the foundation for the whole human potentials movement, as to examine who we are and what we yet may be. So I read this book by Ken Keyes, and I'm really impressed. I like the guy. And I get a chance to meet him out in California. And lo and behold, after reading a bunch of his stuff, this wheelchair comes rolling out. And this little guy in a wheelchair, without much of a body at all, comes rolling out. And it's him. And he never spoke about this in his books, about being in a wheelchair. And he said, well, And he said, the teaching is far more important than what my body is showing you. If I showed you my body first, you'd be weirded out. But now that you've read what I've had to say, you can be in my presence and we can start to learn together. And so his teaching was magnificent. He had a college out in Coos Bay, Oregon, that I attended. And he wrote a book called The Hundredth Monkey, which is an amazing little book with a bunch of cartoons in it, The Hundredth Monkey. It's about how thought travels, basically how thought travels. So these are the kinds of teachers and teachings that have formed my life, which I share in as many ways as I can. I teach. I use improvisation as a means to explore anything. As I said, I've worked in mental hospitals, in old age homes, in millionaires' homes, in prisons, and countless theaters, and businesses using improvisation as a means to explore how we can do things a little bit better. So I have a whole commercial and industrial side to what I've done. I've worked with Johnson & Johnson and Molson's and unions and all kinds of things. You're doing the same thing I do, using improv to explore life and how we can make it a little bit better. I had a 2-year gig with a pharmaceutical company called Ortho McNeil. And they brought me in every Thursday to work with a vertical slice of their company in order to improve their creativity and their communication skills. They flew me once to Ocho Rios, same kind of thing, for new product development, for new launch and a research project. They blew me down to New Brunswick, New Jersey, to the headquarters because they were suffering from siloization. That is, nobody knew what anybody else was doing or who anybody else was, and they needed some kind of communications expert to help people meet each other again at business. So I've had a variety of these kinds of things, utilizing the same skills that I've done in improv in industrial and commercial situations for pretty much the same effect: discover and make things a little bit better. Improv.
Absolutely.
And when I ran for mayor, it was improve through improv.
I was going to ask about your experiences doing Barney's
version.
Barney's version with Dustin Hoffman and Paul Giamatti.
Well, I didn't get to meet Dustin. I did spend some time with Paul, whom I really like, and his body of work has been wonderful.
Yep.
And I've been meaning to yell at him lately. Not that it's his fault. He probably was not aware. His Volkswagen commercials are wonderful. Have you seen those?
I haven't, no.
Whoa, there are a whole series of them out there.
Actually, you know what? My television right here, I don't have it hooked up to play television. I just got it hooked up to play my Blu-rays. It's too much of that reality TV stuff. I just don't feel television is worth it. So I just put my Blu-rays in and watch those when before I go to bed, and that's how I do it.
Well, whatever works for you, brother.
Yeah.
What I have done is I get 10,000 channels. I watch 3 or 4. So I get Al Jazeera is an interesting one. This is the news agency out of the Middle East, and you get a perspective you don't get from CNN or Fox. So I watch a lot of news. I certainly watch the funny stuff at night with the Colbert and Trevor Noah. I do watch those guys. And I'm a sports hound. Especially, I love mixed martial arts. I love those. So I don't know, where are we? How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah?
I'm doing fine. I just say before I come on here, I was watching premiere interviews with you and Anna Hopkins for Barney's version. So
a wonderful movie. Barney's version is a wonderful film. And again, I don't get to do a lot of wonderful films because there's budgets involved in Canada. So that was a chance to do a wonderful film in Montreal and to work with really good performers. And one of the wonderful things about a smooth running operation is that everything seems to be natural and easy. Nothing seems to be forced or difficult. It just runs smoothly. And Barney's version ran very smoothly. And I got a chance to be his on-screen mentor, teach him how to raise money. A couple of good scenes with him in that. But the Volkswagen thing is pressing, and maybe this will actually get to him somehow. I don't know. Volkswagen has a very mixed history in the lives of some people because it comes out of Nazi Germany, right? So it has a mixed history. But for hippies, old hippies, we loved the Volkswagen. We loved it. It was cheap. You could drive it everywhere. And the Volkswagen van, my God, that was a party on wheels. Anytime you saw one, there was smoke coming out of the window or the bare-breasted women. Fantastic. Loved the Volkswagen, the minivans. Loved them, loved them, loved them. So for me, I have these mixed feelings. One, it's a Nazi car, good for the hippies. Then 5 years ago, there are these findings that Volkswagen has secretly put in a chip into the examination mechanism for carbon release. They lied about the carbon by falsifying the testing method, right? Well, that's terrible. So they got fined $1 gazillion. 3 years later, they're back at it saying, in a secret report, not only is carbon monoxide good for you, and they secretly pumped it in to a gymnasium or two, and they did some research on the subjects in the gymnasium to prove that low doses of carbon monoxide coming out of their exhaust would be beneficial somehow to people who are exercising. So the son of a bitches, after being fined billions of dollars, comes back again trying to prove that somehow carbon monoxide is good for you. So they are now the enemy. Volkswagen has declared themselves the enemy of man on an environmental level, which is, we never expected that. It's a betrayal of the worst kind. We thought it was a good thing, that the Volkswagen was a good thing for the environment. It turns out it's a bad thing. And they lied about it. And they continue to lie about it. So then Paul comes along and he does this series of really wonderful commercials where he is an accountant worried about his rock and roll account, who thinks he's going to spend money on ridiculous things. And lo and behold, he spends money on a Volkswagen. And Paul Giamatti is so happy that he spent money on a Volkswagen. There's a series of these commercials. They're very good. They're very effective. But he's smelling the Nazi smokemobile. And they don't deserve him. They don't deserve him. They have betrayed our trust again and again. And they don't deserve the talents of Paul Giamatti.
No.
So that's what I want to tell Paul.
Do you remember much about doing Goon with Sean William Scott?
Goon?
Yeah.
Is that what you said, Goon?
Goon.
Is that the hockey movie? The hockey movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've done a couple of hockey movies. I had a very small part in Goon. He was wonderful in that film, and it has a big following. Beyond just the hockeyness of it, it's the humaneness of it, of the struggle. So I like that movie, Goon, and I think he did a sequel somewhere. Also.
Yeah, I have to admit, I like the sequel even more. Which I was surprised by.
No, I get to play little parts in wonderful little movies, in and out, and that's good. I like it. I look forward to the next one, whatever it is. We did what is it? Ice Dogs. It was another hockey movie with the comic boys. Very funny, very very funny film. So and I have grown to love hockey. I'm from New York. New York means football and wrestling, but hockey, we had the Rangers, but then I really get to Canada, and I learned by watching and becoming a fan and seeing that this is the most, of all the sports everywhere. This is the most complicated of them all. It requires you have to have the skills of all of the other sports put together. You have to be on offense and defense at the same time. You have to hit a thing with a stick like they do in baseball. You have to hit each other like they do in football. You have to move backwards and forwards like they do in soccer and other games. Hockey does it all on skates. No, man, there's nothing like that. Nothing, not even close, that comes to what a hockey player has to do in terms of encompassing a wide variety of skills. And the accuracy of hitting a puck, on a pass one-on-one timer, just a slap shot one timer, it's unbelievable in the upper left-hand corner, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So I've really gained a lot of respect for the game of hockey. I also had the opportunity to play Harold Ballard. You know that name?
No, I don't.
He owned the Maple Leafs for decades. He owned Maple Leaf Gardens for decades. He was kind of a gangster kind of guy, a big, fat, dangerous man who owned the hockey players and treated them like slaves because Maple Leaf Gardens is sold out forever and he don't have to do a damn thing about anything. I wrote a song in the show that we did about his life, which is, and this is something he actually did. It said, take 2 inches off of every seat, double the salt on the popcorn tonight, shrink the cups, raise the heat. These bastards will drink everything in sight. Sell everything. Sell everything we got. Sell everything. Sell them the goddamn lot. The play opens up with the skaters. We had an ice skating rink of Teflon in the theater. The actors are on skates and they're skating and they're screaming, trade me, trade me. And I'm slapping the boards with the big hockey stick saying, skate, you bastard, skate. And this is a monstrous man enslaving the Toronto Maple Leafs to his will because he could do it. He could do it. So I got to play him in the theater, and he contacted the theater saying he was going to sue us. And I contacted him back to Peter Zowski. Remember Zowski?
No.
That name on radio, CBC? No, before your time. All right. Yeah, so I challenged him back in the Gardens. I said, I'll tie one arm behind my back, Harold, and I'll punch your lights out in the Gardens. And you can bring King and Yolanda with you, and I'll punch their lights out too. And we'll give the money to charity. What do you say, Harold? Got any balls left? So we had this feud, a media feud, on the radio as I was portraying his life on stage. It was a wonderful, radical piece of theater, and I was proud to do that one.
I got 3 more films I want to mention to you. One is Lucky Number 11. He had a great cast in that.
I jokingly say about it, I'm what is it? I'm victim number 7. Mm-hmm. That film I did. A lot of people die in a hurry in that movie, as you might see. And again, I have a sweet little part that kind of launches all the stuff that goes on. And again, it's an in and out part, but an important little character, and that sets the thing on. But too many murders, too many. I said one year I died on night heat. I got beaten to death on night heat. I got hung upside down and shot on Adderley. I died of radiation poisoning. I got eaten by a rat. That year, I made a living dying. There's a lot of death that goes on in movies, you know. So, yeah, I like the part because I remember it's a comedic kind of moment in the movie that has a lot of murder in it.
What about Dirty Work? You remember much from that?
Again, an in and out part with a lot of wonderful talent.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty, again, I have a day's work, sometimes a half a day's work with these guys. So my job that day was to fire him for being incompetent. And it was a sweet little film. And it gets better with time, actually, Dirty Work. People talk about it. I just heard it somebody talking about it recently, that they had a tiny part in dirty work, and they were happy to have done that too. So yeah, so that's my life, is a whole bunch of little parts, and I look forward to the next little part. I think the last little part I played was in a thing called Bitten, a TV series.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm on that one. So until they put me away, I'm going to keep doing it. A day here and a day there and a day here and a day there, so long as my energy holds up. And right now I feel pretty good.
What were your memories of Norm Macdonald on Dirty Work?
Again, we don't spend a lot of time together making movies, right? So I'm a Norm Macdonald fan. I like the fact that he is an oddball. He really is an original. His pacing and his sense of humor is unusual. You know, there's a lot of comics out there. I've been privileged to be around a whole bunch of comics. I could have been John Belushi. I had an improvised radio show in New York at the beginning of Saturday Night Live. The producer of the radio show was the producer of the sound coordinator for Saturday Night Live. I had my audition with Herb Sargent at Saturday Night Live. I had a second audition called back with him. And I didn't get the gig, but I could have. I could have been John Belushi, because I was a hot young improviser in New York on a radio show in New York City, doing cutting edge improv then and now that has not been repeated, and I don't know why. We had improvisers sitting around a table with headphones on like yourself, with the microphones on callers. You're on the air. This is the responsive scene, WRVR Riverside Radio. What do you want to play? It's a scene about a landlord and a hippie, and it's about eviction, okay? Okay, so we would improvise based on suggestion to call in. Then we allowed the audience to redirect the show. Oh, hold it, freeze. The hippie is more stoned, and the landlord is coming on to the hippie. And then we would improvise that on the air. And then we allow them to play. Come on the air with us and play. Who is it? It's the police, open up. And now we got the landlord, the hippie, and the cops, and we're playing on the air in New York City, improvising with the audience. And this is in 1960 something. So just before Belushi, it's me doing that kind of stuff down there.
The last
the fact
film
that I'm in Canada, the fact that I'm in Canada at all has to do with an act I was doing at the Village Gate. This is an act I do called Dr. Jerome and His Magic Audience, in which I hypnotize the audience. You are all doctors. Tick tock. You are a doc. So I improvise that, and then I interview the audience. I give them roles to play. You're all doctors. You're all on the beach for whatever reason. It's a conference of doctors on the beach, and you're all angry for whatever reason. You're all angry doctors on a beach, and so I would improvise that and interview people, and it would be funny. And out of the audience one day came a guy from Ottawa who said, who his name is, and he said, "I love what you do. Can you do it on television?" I said, "I don't know. I'll try anything, man." So I wind up auditioning for this guy who has this TV station in Ottawa. The Vietnam War is going on. I'm getting a divorce. I'm doing acid. I'm becoming a vegetarian. I'm leaving my country, and I'm going to Ottawa. And it came out of Dr. Jerome and His Magic Audience. If there's any new thing, or any, not new thing, but something I could add to the understanding of our craft, that is the role of the audience. Usually, especially in the comedic world, we use words like "I killed them" or "I bombed." These are words of attack and defend. I slayed them, boy, laid them out, killed them, knocked them out. I don't want to knock out my audience.
No.
I want to play with my audience. I want to co-create with my audience. I trust my audience. And together we can do something new that may never been done before, and maybe illuminate a situation either through laughter or through tears that we didn't know before. So my experimentation has been the audience. What can we do with the audience on the radio, on television, in person, in institutions? The audience is a co-creative member of the activity that my teacher, David Chepin, called group creativity. And that has been the project for decades now, the Group Creativity Project, exploring how groups of people can create together, how we can create theater, how we create music and poetry and stories and film. I do a workshop now where we can shoot a film in half a day because everybody knows how to shoot a film. And you take, you know, the list on the crawl of credits, the kind of jobs that need to be done in the making of a movie.
Yes.
Take that list and you make cards out of them and you hand them out to the audience. Then so they have a job to do. They have to find a prop or get some lighting done or do some advertising or type a script or act or direct or sound. And so everybody kind of knows what their job is. And within a very short period of time, you get the writing crew together to develop the scenarios. You get your casting director to cast the kind of people necessary to play out the scenarios. You get your location finders, whether you're indoors or outdoors. We're going to that office to play that scene, or going down to the basement to do that scene, or so we can literally make a movie in a half a day because everybody knows how to make a movie because of that small part they have to play. So that's the exploration: is how do we co-create together, and how can we do something new and useful? You never know. So every year at the Improv Games. When part of my job is to invite the audience to stand, to place a hand on their heart and the other hand on somebody next to them, with their permission, of course, and to repeat the improv oath. And I get hundreds, sometimes thousands of people to yell, "We have come together. We have come together in the spirit of loving competition to celebrate the Canadian High School Improv Games." Hundreds of people yelling. We promise to cooperate with one another, to learn from each other, to commit ourselves to the moment, and above all, to have a good time. You get 1,000 teenagers screaming in the National Arts Center. It's amazing, just amazing. They are the art form. The audience is fantastic. One of the wonderful moments I had in these improv games, because I've been doing them so long, is the ushers who are at the games. And I talked to them one year, every year basically, and I say, I mean, you get to see the best ballet dancers in the world, the opera singers, symphony, the directors, plays. Why on earth would you want to spend time watching teenagers? And they said to us, "We fight to get this gig." Are you kidding? They love my kids. These are the ushers who usher ballet dancers and symphony orchestras, and they can't wait to be in front of the energy that my kids put out. The improv games are a miracle, and they're all about acceptance and finding your family. I'd like to end with this kind of story, if I might.
Sure.
Because I'm getting tired. Year after year, inevitably, the kids would come up to me after the games, and they would say something like, "Oh, Mr. Jerome, you have no idea how important these games were to us." So one year, 3 kids come up to me, 2 girls and a boy. Girl number 1 comes up to me and said, "Without finding my improv family, I'd have left school a long time ago." Girl number 2 said, "I'd have been pregnant by now." And then the boy said, "I wouldn't even be here." He said, "I was on my way out of Heartbreak Hotel until I found people who embraced me, who accepted me, even though I was a weird guy who thought weird things. These people said, 'Come on in and play with us.' You saved my life." So what do you do with stuff like that? It's been an honor and a blessing to have created the improv games and to watch now hundreds of thousands of students who've actually played. So that's been my payback to this country that has given me so much. So with that, love you, man. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to say too, you did Food of the Gods too. I met Lisa Sherrods at Horrorama. And
that
she
was
has
the year I got eaten by the rat. The rat ate me that year.
She hasn't changed a bit. She is still beautiful too. I met her in person.
I'll tell you the story of the rat then. Shit, I hope to get out on a poignant. It's not going to happen. So this is a story about genetic mutant rats that go so giant big. And they call me and my partner in to try to exterminate the rats and in turn exterminate us. And so my rat that's killing me, we have two rats. And on the close-up, what they are rat puppets, right? And one of them is gnawing at my neck with blood pellets in the teeth of the rat, and the blood is spurting out of my neck. You can see the gnawing at my neck. The other gnawing part is taking place down here. And the rat down here is gnawing at my groin.
Oh.
And the rat that's gnawing at my groin is being handled by this beautiful young lady who has to put her hand up this stupid actor's groin with his stupid teeth that are spurting blood in the crotch of this stupid old actor. So it was I enjoyed it so much I made him do it 2 or 3 times more, because how often do you get someone gnawing at your groin? So,
well, Howard,
for this time together, I really
it was so wonderful having you on, and so many different stories and so many adventures. And you know, I appreciate you coming on here today and spending time with me. You know, well,
yeah. I'll forever be known as number 405. I thank you so much.
Yeah. By the way, we'll end on a little Bruno Sammartino here.
I love it. I love Bruno. I do half him. I love it, man.
There you go.
Be well.
Be well. You take care, and God bless.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.